So
Some,
hard to say no.
right? Some of my friends think I'm being dramatic when I say that, but I'm like, well, you guys have known me for years, right? Look what I've done for years, and look what I'm doing now. So
Exactly.
the
Like
proof is in the pudding.
you can see the change here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I feel like that with especially with family members who started out saying, "I'm sorry, you want to do what?"
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
and now I can say, "Yeah, that was 15 years ago. Look, it's still happening."
Right.
um, so I've got a little pop up. So do you have any questions before we get started?
um. Yeah. Well, can you kind of run me through just the general vibe? I know in the email you said you kind of like to like go with the flow
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Absolutely. No, thank you. That's a great question. Well, first I should say it's so great to meet you in person because that's the thing that's lacking in my life is actually connecting with other writers because,
the same.
with life events kind of on the downturn and I live out in New Mexico. Are you in California still?
No, I moved out of California. I moved.
Uh-huh.
I actually moved out the first year I started writing. I moved out in 2020. Yeah, I
Ah,
moved to
okay.
Illinois because
Oh,
I met a beautiful woman and she was amazing and she was definitely worth moving halfway across the
uh,
country for.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I have friends in Illinois. You get all the seasons. It's beautiful, right?
Yeah, it was the first year. I was like, oh, look at the snow falling. It's so magical. It's just like the movies. But after
Right.
like 3 weeks, I was like, okay, it's time to go back to California where
Yeah,
it's sunny
yeah.
all the time, and you know.
No, I
But
get that. We're pretty spoiled here in New Mexico because it does snow and it's beautiful, but it usually melts by 10 a.m.
oh, that's
So,
nice.
so you're like, oh, let's go play, let's take pictures, and done.
Yeah, I love that. Might have to try to talk my girlfriend into moving to New Mexico
Yeah,
now.
some good
Yeah.
sunshine. So as far as Barefoot Writer goes, the magazine is essentially kind of like the front gate for AWAI.
Yeah.
It's for anybody who's raised their hand and said, "I think this sounds cool, but I'm pretty skeptical, and I don't know how I'd pull it off." And while we have a lot of information in the magazine about how to get started and different directions you can go in, the thing that always resonates the most with people, and I know this was true for me, is just the success stories
Hmm.
and getting to connect with other writers who are actually doing it and prove that this is real.
Yeah.
And so we've always had these interviews in the magazine, for over 12 years now.
Mm.
And I'm hoping you might have noticed when you jumped onto the video that it says the Barefoot Writer podcast. And we don't have a podcast yet, I will be honest, but I'm hoping to get one. So I'm recording it for the transcript purposes, but the reason I love doing it on video is so that if we ever do have a podcast, then with your permission, I'd reach out to everybody, but then we would be able to go ahead and put that up where more people can access it.
Oh,
Um,
that's amazing.
and so when I start the recording, I'll welcome you as if it's a podcast, but just so you know, it's a pretend podcast right
Okay, okay.
now.
I can pretend.
um,
I'm good at that.
good. And then as far as the actual interview goes, just sharing your story as vulnerably as you're comfortable with, the good, the bad, the ugly, because then it's more credible.
Yeah.
But in the end, it is working for you, and that's the holy grail for everybody. So, but because it is video, we can easily edit anything out and go off topic and add questions or skip questions, or hopefully my dogs will behave. I have a little one who just snores like a freight train.
Aw.
But if I put her outside, she barks. And
Yeah.
so, all right, so let me go ahead and start the recording, and
Okay.
we'll see a little countdown here. And I just want to say I'm so grateful that you're here.
Um,
Okay, so let me do my little spiel. Okay, Derek, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm so excited to get to share your story with the world and to get to hear more details on how you got to where you are. Welcome.
thank you. Thank you for having me, Mindy. It's nice to
Wonderful.
finally meet you.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, I've read about you many times. I love your case study on the AWAI website.
I read
Yeah,
about you
yeah.
too.
It is great to finally get to meet when we have these almost like pretend friends online, right?
Right. Yeah.
Real friends, but it's nice to see face to face, voice to voice. So let's start by just jumping back to what life was like before you found writing and copywriting, and what was working for you, what wasn't working for you, what did you want to change?
Oh, okay. Life before I found copywriting. I remember working. The last job I worked before I started, I was actually, um, uh, I was actually a cashier at Metro PCS, but I was so bad at selling that they pretty much had me outside with the store sign, and so I call myself a sign flipper because I got so bored of just standing here like this that I actually started learning how to flip the sign and do tricks and stuff. I
Nice.
don't know if that actually helped us attract customers because obviously you can't track right your sign flipping like unlike copywriting, which is something you can actually track. But yeah, so I was a professional sign flipper, and my life pretty much consists of catching the bus to work, and it would take me about an hour to 2 hours to get to work every day, and then an hour and a half to get home. And some days the commute itself was actually longer than my work shift. So some days I'd only be called in for 3 or 4 hours, but it would take me so long to get there. It's like, well, this isn't even worth it, right? Because I'm not getting paid for all this extra time that I'm spending. And it's really just kind of a waste of life, in my opinion. And if I had a car, obviously that would have been much easier. But I didn't make enough money to buy a car because I had bills and other stuff to. So luckily for me, I lived in the city. I lived in LA, so there was buses, there was trains. It was fairly easy to get around, but obviously public transportation just takes a very long time. And that was pretty much my life for the most part, which is working or I was on my way to work.
That sounds like something that you would want to just have as a temporary blip in your life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I can relate with previous jobs where you look back and you think, God, how did I even get through that? But I appreciate all the detail, especially the lack of control over that commute and your
hmm
schedule. And so, how did you make the leap from that, which sounds pretty unpleasant, to the freedom and income that you're enjoying now as a copywriter?
Um, well, it actually started with a very stupid idea that I was going to create like an online course because I was like all the rage at the time. Everyone had their online course. So I was like, oh, well, I know a little bit about something. So let me try to make one, right? And I had no marketing knowledge. I knew absolutely nothing about copywriting or running Facebook ads or any of that stuff. But I put together this online course. It took me like 3 months. And this was like my escape plan from the 9 to 5, right? So I launched this thing. I had to learn all these different softwares and all this different stuff to put this course together, like ClickFunnels. I had to learn about Zoom and putting together slideshows and all this stuff. I launched this thing. I think I spent like five to $800 on Facebook ads, and obviously like the ClickFunnels membership and all this different software. And about $1,800 later, I was pretty much completely flat broke. And I had already quit my job at this point too, right? Because I was like, oh yeah,
Oh,
I'm gonna launch this thing. It's just a numbers game. I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm gonna make a ton of money, and I'm gonna be a millionaire. So I quit, which is really dumb in hindsight, right? Like it was very irresponsible. So I quit my job, launched this thing. It totally flops, and I'm like, all right, well, I got like $1,000 left in my bank account, and rent's coming up, so I can pay rent. But what about after that? Like, I got to get this thing working so that I can make some money and not have to go back to a regular job. And I just started Googling, right? Like, okay, well, why can't I sell my online course, right? Like, what stopped me from doing that? And the article I read said, one of the reasons is because your copy didn't resonate with the audience. And I'm like, copy? What is that? What's that? What's copy? So I just went down the rabbit hole, and so I landed on another blog post that was, some of the best copywriting courses you could take, because I was like, I need to learn this tomorrow. I don't have, I don't have forever to try to figure this out. I need to pay somebody to teach me what they know, and I need to absorb it as quickly as possible. So that's how I actually discovered AWAI. I read the sales letter for, at the time it was called the Accelerator Program for six-figure copywriters, or six-figure copywriting. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to read this whole thing because I know this is what I need to learn. And the blog post I just read told me that this is the course. So I just skipped to the bottom and I was like, all right, sign me up. And every day after that, I just dove in, like maybe 12, 14 hours a day. I was just studying copywriting, and all my friends thought I was crazy. And they were like, what are you doing? You don't want to come hang out with us? Well, what about after you're done studying, right? In my mind, I'm like, there is no after. There is only this. Like, this is it. This is my life for the next, 30, 90 days. And, I just dove in.
Wow. Wow. I relate to so much of your story, especially the part about just quitting the job and thinking, this will work.
Yeah.
And realizing, oh, wait, there might be more to the story.
No, yeah. I mean, in my situation, it had to work, right? Like, I didn't have any money coming in. And, this was, a promise that I made myself. I was like, no more, right? Like, no more 9-to-5s, no more silly retail jobs. Like, up until that point, I had only worked as a cashier or, some kind of warehouse worker. I had all these really, I don't want to call them silly jobs because they're important jobs, but there were jobs that I didn't want to be in. I didn't foresee that kind of stuff for my life, and I felt like I was meant for, not to downplay anyone who's working in those fields, but I felt like I was meant for something different, meant for something maybe more, and I definitely wanted to earn more. And I was sick of riding the bus to work. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, whatever I was doing next had to check those boxes, and copywriting checked those boxes. So.
Really, you had the gift of desperation.
Yeah.
Which
that's a powerful motivator.
It really is. It's very powerful. But I'm curious and impressed too with the motivation you were able to summon by just writing your own course, on a wing and a prayer. And you did that before you quit your job, is that correct?
When I got signed up?
Because you had written the course originally, right? And then you realized you needed to market it.
I wrote the course before I quit.
Uh-huh.
And then I launched it after I quit.
Okay, yeah, then it was go time. But tell me about how you were, I guess we talked about the gift of desperation, but still it takes a lot of focus and diligence to sit down and write a whole course. So how were you able to pull that off? Did you have a system? Do you have favorite organizational tools? Because this is before you even became a freelancer. Mm-hmm. Do you remember how you were able to just plug right along?
Yeah, I actually relied quite a bit on making slides and video because I felt like I was better at the time. I was better at explaining it verbally than I was writing it down. Now it's kind of the inverse. Now I don't talk as much and I write more. So you grow the muscle that you use the most, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, so back then I relied more on video, and I actually didn't even like writing at the time. Like before, I know it sounds weird, but I actually kind of hated writing because I was slow and it just wasn't fun. My fingers would hurt, stuff like that. So I don't know why I read copywriting and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that now because I didn't like writing. But, things change.
Absolutely. Well, how did you overcome that? Was it just by sheer mental force of will, or did you practice so much that you started gaining a love for it?
Mm-hmm. It was actually a little bit of both, and it was kind of like a sliding scale. In the beginning, I did it because I had to, and anytime I say like I had to, like I could have done other things. I had other options, but I had already decided to do this. And so when I decide this is what I'm gonna do. I just do it, and I don't really think about what it takes. I don't really think about the things that could potentially stop me or get irritating. I just go for it. And I feel like that ability to just like shut my brain off and just do the grunt work, right? Like I kind of hop back into like warehouse employee mode, right? Where you just show up, you don't complain, you just do the work, right? And
Nice.
I guess I kind of came at it from that mentality where every day I was like, okay, well, I got to do this, and this, and it's got to get done. Maybe, my task for the day was just to study, then I would just study. Or maybe it was to hand copy 3 sales letters, 10 times a piece, right? Because of the course.
Right.
I didn't like it at first, but I was like, you know what? This is what you have to do to get to where you want to go. So I just shut up and I did it. And all the workbook exercises and the AWAI course, I just did it. I didn't think too much about it. I feel like the more I think about stuff, the more I don't want to do it. Like, the more you think about things you don't want to do, the more you're like, I can think of better ways to spend my time.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That's
how I feel about exercise.
Same.
Right? You need it. It'll get you to the end goal. But if you overthink it.
Yeah. And like, that's the funny thing too, is exercise is very similar. You don't want to do it, but like after you do it consistently for a couple weeks, you actually feel really good about doing it. And then when you stop doing it, you're like, I know I should go do it. And then sometimes you go, sometimes you don't. So I actually I actually created a little, maybe this is off topic, but I feel like it'll help people. I actually created like a mode, right? Like a way of living that I call a zombie body mode. And this is like a technique I use to get myself to do things I don't want to do. So you know how like a zombie, like even if a zombie has like missing limbs or whatever, right? It'll always crawl towards like blood and brains and stuff like that because that's what it eats. And zombies are like super dumb, right? Like they'll put themselves in really bad situations just to eat, right? Because they're not thinking, they're just acting, right? Their body their body knows what it needs to do, and so they just do it because they're like they have a one-track mind, so to speak. And so anytime I have to do something I don't really want to do, I just like go zombie body, and it just like I just stop using my brain, period. And my body knows what it needs to do. So like if it's typing and getting out that really ugly first draft, right? The pain of getting your first draft. Then I just cut my brain off and I just type and I just think in very simple terms. I don't try to make it copy. I don't try to make it fancy. I do all that in editing. But just getting out the first draft or cleaning my house. If I have to clean my house, sometimes I don't want to do it. And I'm just like, okay, we just go zombie mode, right? And we just cut off our brains. My body knows this house needs to be clean. I know how to clean a house. I've done it my entire life, right? So, yeah, it's just a way for me to stop thinking, and that helps me take action.
It's so great. I love this so much. Zombie body mode. Plus, it's more of an attractive way to approach a challenge than saying you need to focus.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Because it's hard to focus.
Right. It's hard to focus. And, I will say, over the past dozen years, I've interviewed hundreds of writers, and many of them who are book authors who've gone on to win extraordinary awards and have done great things with their writing. And when I ask them how they pulled it off, they always say it really just comes down to doing the work, minute after minute, hour after hour. It's not about being a genius. It's not about having a leg up from somebody who knows somebody. It's about doing the work. And so I feel like I need to put a picture of a zombie on my monitor now so that I can be inspired. It's just such a great way to describe your approach. So now tell us, where did that land you? You started learning copy so you could promote your course. Tell me a little bit about how that went, and then where did you go from there in terms of copywriting?
Oh, okay. So I started learning copywriting, and originally it was just so I could fix my sales funnels. But then I, going through the course, I was learning that you can actually make a living from just doing this. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't like, there's so much I know I don't know at this point that I was kind of like doing like a, like almost like an analysis. Okay, well, how long would it take me to get good enough to get this thing to work versus just getting a freelance client? And getting a freelance client seemed like it would be way easier, like 10 times easier, right? Because I've already put so much money, time, and effort into this thing. And like, I know it's like some people at this point would probably try to double down on this. But in my mind, this already wasn't working. And so getting freelance clients sounded like, I don't know, it just sounded way easier. So I was like, okay, let's go with the path of least resistance. And I feel like I'm already getting pretty good at writing copy because of taking the course and actually taking it seriously and doing all the exercises, right? Doing all the training. So yeah, I felt pretty confident that I could, write something, right? I could be decent at something. At the time, I still specialized in emails, but I was primarily writing emails. So all my practice was basically just emails. And so, yeah, I was like, okay, well, I can write a pretty decent email at this time. So, maybe I could start reaching out to clients.
And how did you go about doing that? Did you go online to jobs boards or to people you knew or just cold calling or cold emailing?
Um, at first, my very first client came from a Facebook group. I was in this Facebook group for marketers, and it was a very new group. You had to actually pay to get in the group. You had to buy some 30-day program to get in the group. And so I had access to thousands of business owners who all were interested in having better marketing. And I happen to be a marketer, right? So, and I made a post using my copy skills that I just learned. I made a post. It was like one sentence, and our first post was just to introduce what we do to the community. And my post went pretty crazy, and I've been having like 400 something comments. The post is actually where I met my girlfriend, who I'm madly in love with, and she's also sitting like 10 feet away from me right now.
Oh, it's a copywriting love story.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. And yeah, so the post went pretty big, and I got my first couple clients from that post. And just being, active in the community. Looking back now, I actually wish that I put more effort into networking with people in the community, because I made a mistake. I got my first client from there, and then I was like, okay, I got 1, 2, 3 clients from that group. Okay, now where else do I go to get clients? And that was a huge mistake. And now I know better, right? Like, okay, well, this is working. Now you just double down on what's already working.
Exactly.
I started sending cold emails to get clients, which is great. Like, I loved it, and it worked out very well. But if something's working, don't try to reinvent the wheel, right? Like, just keep doing what's working. But I was too fresh. I was too green, and you live and you learn.
Oh yeah, I relate to that completely. Isn't it funny how you can read all these success stories and this worked for this person, and this worked for this person, and then you go out and think, all right, so how am I going to do it? Instead of
Right.
like reading the writing on the wall, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that.
Yeah.
So okay, so you're landing clients and things are going well. What did you do from there? Because I know there was a move involved
Oh yeah.
somewhere in that story.
Yes. So I landed my first few clients, and then I actually landed a retainer also from an agency who was in that marketing group. So I landed one retainer, then I stacked it with another, and soon I moved. Okay, so what did I do from there? I mean, I guess I didn't really do anything different. per se. I mean, like I started sending cold emails instead of networking in the Facebook group, which, like I said again, was a mistake. Um, but I felt like I already had the winning formula at that point. Okay, well, this is how you get clients. This is really easy. For me, it was easy, right? So I just kept doing that thing, and I just did it over and over and over. And I mean, I had a couple of bumps and bruises along the way. Like one agency that I worked. This is when I learned that when you work with agencies, you need to you might have to lower your fees. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I tried to work with this one agency, and she asked me, what are my rates for a blog post? And well, one of my blog posts were terrible because I had only pretty much written emails, so I was really good at that. Terrible at writing any kind of like content. Still kind of am, but like Chat GPT helps a lot. So, but yeah. Also, one lady, I quoted her that I was charging $400 a blog post, and like the look on her face is like she got struck by lightning. She was $400, and so then she asked me for a sample of my blog posts, and like I said, they were terrible. And she said, "This isn't the quality of work I'm looking for at this time. But if I have anything that meets your, I guess she said, skill set or something like that, then I'll reach out." And I was like, I know it's bad. I know it's bad. So yeah, don't ever, don't overcharge that. And yeah, I should have. Yeah, it was bad. So that was like the first time I actually had like a really big rejection. Up until that point, I think I was like 5 for 5. The 5 people that I talked to, I landed a gig with all. No, I was like 5 for 6. Because there was one person I was talking to for a very long time, agency owner, super cool dude. We still talk to this day. But yeah, I think I talked to him like 40. I think I followed up with him like 44 times before I got a gig.
Wow.
Yeah, before I
Oh,
got a
wow.
gig from him. I had this really like simple follow up system where like sometimes like for me like a follow up could be like I'll send him a meme, like a marketing meme. That's something that he would find hilarious. But like if I send it to my friends, they'd be like, "Why'd you send me this?" Right? So,
Right.
um,
Right.
and
Well, that matters so much, that follow up. And
mhm,
thank you for sharing your story about rejection because it's a huge fear
yeah,
for all up and coming writers is that you'll get rejected and that'll be it. That'll be the
uh,
end. But you're such a great testament to showing actually, no, you can keep on going. Look at what's working, look at your strengths. And it sounds like following up and really just being a friendly human is one of your strengths.
yeah.
And it served you well. And so what did life start to look like at that point? You're getting copywriting jobs, you've got income coming in,
Hmm.
you're no longer having to commute for hours and hours on public transportation. What started changing for you?
Um, I would say the biggest change was I think the biggest change was confidence. Uh, I began to be a lot more confident. I felt like I was already a pretty confident person, but there's something about making money online or like being your own boss that makes you feel a little well, like it makes me feel a little untouchable
Yeah.
because it just and charging and not being afraid to charge, you know, I would say bigger fees because a lot of the writers I knew at the time were undercharging for what they were doing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but honestly, I just stuck to the AWAI price guide, and whatever it said, that's the number I would say. And so I didn't really think about like people ask me what my price was. I would always refer to my rate sheet, which was
Great.
just the AWAI price guide.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
um,
I still use that to this day, 15 years after starting.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's reliable, it's updated, it's accurate,
right. It's
and it's got
nice.
my fees in it. So why not?
Yeah, and so I just stuck to that. My biggest thing in the beginning was just don't try to reinvent the wheel. Like don't try to for me, don't try to create anything on my own. Like there's a system that I already, paid to learn. Just use the system. And so using the system got me all my success. It wasn't, I didn't really have difficulty until I tried to stray away from what was working or the system. But like, I think that's just an emotional thing, right? It's like you have this thing that's already working for you. You have this system that you're using. It's getting you all the success. And at the time I was consuming a lot of different like marketing material from all these different sources. And I was just trying to learn more about direct response copywriting. And the more I tried to follow someone else's system, or the more I tried to weave, these different things into what I was doing, the more bloated my copywriting business got. My mind was just scattered. I was looking at all these different programs for the answers to problems that I had already solved, in my first year of copywriting. And so I think simplicity is key. And in the beginning, my business was super simple. I talked to people every day, and I asked them, if there's anything I can help them out with. And then if there was some potential interest or they wanted to hire me for a freelance project, I just made sure that I followed up with them. And sometimes that's an email. Sometimes that's me commenting on their Facebook posts or whatever. And sometimes that's a text message. It's a GIF. Sometimes it's not even related to marketing at all. It's just something I saw that I was like, oh yeah, any marketer I know would love this. They'd laugh at this. So yeah, my business was like super simple, and I think that's when it worked best. Yeah.
I love the way you describe that. It's so relatable because I think a lot of copywriters face something similar in the sense that they start to get more and more successful. So you just feel like you need to build and then maybe create a complicated website
Yeah.
and hire somebody and just branch out in all these other ways. But really, I love what you said. Simplicity is key. And if you just want to keep doing what you're doing and bring in the money, you don't have to do any of the other things. You absolutely can,
Yeah.
and it depends on which direction you want to go. And some people love that and they thrive on it. But it is for the rewards you get, the freedom, the autonomy, the income. It is a remarkably simple career.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
It
and
is.
so now tell me, when you made this switch, what did your friends and family have to say about this? What were their thoughts or their observations?
Mm, well, my family was super, super supportive. Well, I didn't talk to everyone about it. I mean, because, I don't know. In my situation, I didn't really grow up with a large portion of my family members, like 99.9% of them, because I was in foster care. So I the way my girlfriend's, I love the way she says it. She says that I didn't grow up with, uh, that built-in pressure you have to like appease your family and do things that like make them happy, whatever. I didn't really, yeah, that wasn't really ingrained in me because I didn't grow up with them. So they kind of feel like really close friends, which is kind of weird. And like it used to be like this giant thing for me when I was growing up, but now it's like, oh well, I actually see the benefits, that I don't feel like so attached to them where I feel like I need to make them happy, because some of the stuff that they want me to do, I don't want to do it. And I'm totally happy to just be like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do this because this is my plan. This is my life. And at the end of the day, that is my story that's going in the wooden box, right? It's no one else's story. So I'm going to fill that box with the things that make me happy, the things that make me feel alive and make me feel joyous and happy. And I'm not going to do anything that's going to, that doesn't fit into that box. So, okay, kind of weird, but.
No, honestly, that's so beautifully put, because I see how you took something and you see it as a strength. You're untethered to expectations. And honestly, for everybody, like, again, beautifully put, it's your own story that goes in the box. So it doesn't really matter what other people think or want for you.
Yeah.
You've got to make it happen. You've got to follow what you want your story to be and write it. And I really admire the way that you've been able to take what you're interested in and just go with it and not worry about the ramifications and repercussions here and there.
Yeah.
Now tell me, okay, if you could go back, actually, hang on just a second.
Mhm.
My little, I don't know if you can hear my little dog. That's why I've been muting myself.
Oh.
But, let me just grab her. Sorry. Normally she's right by my foot, so I can kind of nudge her when she starts getting loud. But I think she got tired of it and she went to the other side of the
Aw.
room. Okay. So, because I can't mute it when I'm talking.
All good.
Okay. So let me, where was I? I was going to say, okay, so let's say you could go back and talk with Derek the Science Lover and kind of give him a preview of what's coming. What would you tell him about what to expect?
Um, that's a great question. Um, hmm. I don't know if I would have. Because I think about this sometimes, and sometimes people ask me that question too. Um, I, I, I used to have an answer for it, but now I don't think I would tell him anything, because I love the way that my life played out so far, just the way it did, and my fear is that if I tell him something, if he listens to me, which I'm the future him, right? So he'll probably listen to me.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
my fear is that if I tell him something, he might take that and go in a different direction. Not like out of like defiance or anything like that, but just obviously I don't want to tell him exactly what to do, right? Because that'll change who I am in the present. Or maybe I'm just like thinking about it like like if this was a movie, right? And I tell the guy something and my whole course changes. I want things to turn out exactly the way they did because I love my life, and I love what it is now and what it's become. So I probably wouldn't tell him anything. Um, I give him a hug though, if I could. If
Aw,
I could, I give him a hug.
right.
Yeah,
Like things will get better. But
yeah.
that's powerful. I mean, just to hear you say you love your life, how many people working in the world can say that today?
Well, if you asked me that last
So
week, I probably wouldn't have said it, but today I do.
that's fair. That's fair. It ebbs and flows,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely, definitely.
That's wonderful. Okay, so what if you came across somebody who's brand new to the world of copywriting and they kind of want to get started, but they've got a little bit of fear? What advice would you give to them?
I'm gonna give some very, I'd say it's unconventional advice, because one of my biggest, one of the biggest motivators for me to learn copy was the fact that I had zero income and I needed to, like, this had to work pretty much. Like there was no plan B in place. If this didn't work, I'd be out on the streets, right? And I definitely didn't want that. Funny statistic, well, it's actually not really funny, but it's just side note, statistic wise, 50% of foster youth actually become homeless at least once in their life. And I think it's something like over 75% of the people that become homeless once do it again for former foster youth. I didn't want to be part of that statistic ever. And so I just went like crazy into learning copy as fast as I could. Um, but I don't recommend people quit their jobs to learn copywriting. I did it backwards. I did it so backwards, but I just didn't know any better. So, any advice to newcomers? Don't quit your day job. Learn copy on the side, and I honestly say and dedicate a certain amount of time each day to learning it, because I know a lot of people, they buy the course, they it feels good when they buy it and they're all amped up, and they sit on it for like 3 years and they're like, hey, I'm back, right? And
Mhm.
literally in the Facebook group, I don't know who you are. Like, you're back from a 5 year hiatus of not learning and not moving forward. Like, which is fine. Like, different things come up, right? But I would say dedicate a certain amount of time to going through your course material, whatever course you buy, and actually just do 100% of the assignments. It doesn't matter if you like it or not, right? It's going to make you a more powerful writer. It's going to make you a more powerful marketer. And I guess that's my biggest pieces of advice. Set aside time. Go through step by step. And don't move forward if there's something you don't understand. Don't just keep going and think that you'll get it later, because sometimes those foundational principles, if you don't understand them, then your copy won't work. So, and that's what business owners are paying you for. So you kind of need to learn the fundamentals. So if there's something you don't understand, go to the Facebook group, ask for help. AWAI is always there to support you as well. I'm in the Facebook group. If I see a question, I'm pretty active there, so I'll answer. But yeah, so just learn the foundation, set aside time, and I forgot my first one. Maybe I'm talking too much.
No, this is gold. I mean, from somebody who's been there and who's really done it. And I relate to many of your lessons. I also quit my job before I really knew what I was doing.
Oh yeah,
And
keep your day job. That was number one.
it would have been nice to avoid the stress, like it
Yeah,
does light a fire underneath you. So there's that flip side. But
yeah,
if you're not looking to, be panicked in the middle of the night,
right, right.
because it will come. It will come, and it's a great career, and you can go high and earn a lot quickly, especially compared to most other careers. But it does take work, and it does take learning, and it does take diligence and tenacity and zombie body mode.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in the beginning, there's a lot of that, right? There's a lot of
Right.
I'm gonna take this action and I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm just gonna do it anyway,
Hmm.
and everything's gonna be all right at the end of the day, whether you get that client or not. Um, the client that I told you about earlier that denied me, we ended up working together later on down the road. So,
Really?
and I gave her a
Wow.
really fair price. So,
That is beautifully put. Oh, I love that so much. Well, Derek, thank you for gifting us your time today and sharing your story so vulnerably and just so honestly. I know that a lot of people will benefit from it. I've benefited from it. I
oh,
feel,
thank
well,
you.
like I said, I want to put a picture of a zombie up on my computer screen just to remind myself sometimes it's just about that minute by minute, get the work done
Yeah, absolutely.
attitude. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing where your career takes you from here. I believe you have great, even greater things ahead of you.
Oh, thank you, Mindy.
Thank you so much. Okay, hang on just a sec.
Hmm.
Oh, where's the stop button? There we go. Um, and then let me let it upload. Oh my goodness, that was so lovely. Thank you so much. That was really a fun interview.
Yeah.
Um, I really appreciate it. And I can't remember if I put in the email that I would love to have at least 2 photos of you that I can include in the interview spread.
I don't know. I don't remember the email
Oh,
like
well,
that, but I can provide you a couple photos.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really, it's just to kind of color the interview to show a little bit about who you are and your writer's life. And it can be whatever you want. It can be a headshot, it can be you with your pets or with, on vacation
Oh
or
yeah.
your workspace, whatever you're comfortable
You're
with.
getting
But
the vacation photos because I've never actually traveled out of state until I started learning copy with AWAI. So my
wow.
first time ever on a plane was when I went to go see my now girlfriend Erica.
Uh-huh.
That was the first time I'd ever been out of state. But since then, I've traveled to I think 8 states, 8 or 9.
Wow.
Yeah, not all of them by plane, but I think six. I got like six out of the 9 by
Nice.
plane, and then the rest. My girlfriend, she loves road trips, so we get on the road, and we drove to Maine once from Illinois, which is
Oh,
like 23
wow.
hours of driving, and
Oh,
then we drove
wow. And it's so
back.
beautiful there, I've heard, right? I've
Oh
never been,
yeah,
but
it
I've
was gorgeous.
beautiful.
It was so nice out there. Tons of hills
Oh,
though. Yeah,
really?
I'm not a huge fan of all that. Yeah, it felt
Right.
like I was. It felt like we're on a roller coaster driving there at night, and it's like pitch black, and the only thing you
Oh,
can
yeah.
see is the little light panels in the middle of the road that's
Oh,
dividing your lane
cute.
and Yes, those are best.
No, I'm with you there. That wouldn't be my cup of tea at all.
Yeah.
But well, wonderful. And when the interview comes out, I'll send you a copy. And which Facebook group is it that you're so active in? Is it the AWAI or the Barefoot Writer?
Mostly the AWAI group, and I think it's called Copywriting Insiders. The one,
Oh, okay.
yeah, the program for people who've
That's
purchased a program. The
okay.
group for people who purchased a program. Yeah, and those mostly.
Okay, I'll make a note of that. But yeah, and if you have any questions, reach out to me. But otherwise, I'll keep you posted and just send me those 2 pictures when you get a chance. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You too, Mindy. All right, I'll send you the photos. It was so good to meet you. And one day we'll meet in
Wonderful.
person when I show up to
I hope
one
so.
of the
Definitely.
summits. Yeah.
Let's make it happen. Okay. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Get a free month of Riverside Pro, a $29